The Mannin Line, daily interaction, debate and exchange of ideas. Broadcast on Manx Radio from midday till 1, Monday to Friday.
Faster my good afternoon. Welcome to Wednesday lunchtime on the Isle of Man. Mannin Line till 1. Text 166 177. WhatsApp 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. Call 66 13 68. Well, a week on Friday, pre-TT gets underway. And a week on Monday, TT 2023 is underway. Everything's getting spruced up. They're even cleaning the road outside McDonald's. A note in from 927 says, Andy, the Douglas Promenade is a dump. Have you seen the toilets near the T-shirt shop? The gutters are hanging off, the doors are rusty, weeds are growing out of the roof. Come on, not long to go. And also a message about the green strip. Do you know the famous Wilding green strip where the horse trams could or should be going on Lower Douglas Promenade, Loch Promenade? It's growing because guess what? It's the middle of May. Are they going to be trimming that grass for TT and reversing the wilding, or will people just be parking their bikes among the long grass? We wait and we see. A message yesterday, somebody texted in and just said, why can't we buy council houses like they started in the UK? Well, it was years ago in the UK, wasn't it? The 1990s, I think that came in. It's been asked, the question has been asked over here, but there doesn't seem to be the political will for people to the public authorities to actually sell public sector houses. Wilf's first on today. Hi, Wilf.
I just missed it yesterday, and I heard somebody say something about putting the groins back on Douglas Beach.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on about this before, but nobody seems to take any notice. But I'll tell you again. The groins were put on Douglas Beach to hold the sand back for the visitors to play in. Now then, when we took away the longshore drift, now we've got they took away the longshore drift by putting the breakwater in.
Right.
Now the only drift we've got is straight in and straight out. The inshore wind pushes the sand. I don't know, is the groin still there? They might be buried now, I don't know.
No, they took the groins away. There's nothing left of them.
Right, and the rubble and all the stones and all the rest of it, till it's piled up right up to the top of the wall, and it'll get higher still. They need to get the lorries in and the diggers and take it away. And then it'll do for another few years, and then it'll build up again.
You'll be taking thousands of tons away, though.
Exactly. Give it away, let them take it away. They can use it for building, crush it, do what they like with it. Instead of buying it, they can get it for nothing. And it's going to do a good job. It used to be that you used to have to jump off that promenade down to the sand.
Yeah.
Now you can walk straight on.
Well, it's Douglas Council are responsible for the groins. They took them away. I've heard all sorts of stories. The fact that they're either in storage or they've rotted away, or they don't want to build any new ones, or they can't be bothered putting them back, or there's no money for it. You pay your money, you take your choice.
That's fair. That's fair enough. But the thing is, they're no use anyway at all now. If you put them back, do what you like with them. You can burn them for firewood. They're no use anymore. You've got no longshore drift. The sand will now stay on the beach. It's staying on the beach now too much. Sand and the cobbles are in too much now. Well, it's building up and it won't go away.
It's building up on Central Prom, isn't it? Then from the Castle Mona up until the bottom of Summerhill. It's just, and obviously outside the Palace Hotel, you literally walk straight onto the beach.
That's it. Get JCK or whoever they want and give it to them for nothing and say, let them take it all away. Go and use it for something. Go and put it on a road or something. Go and get it crushed. And you'll have a beach again.
Well,
Very
we'll
simple.
see. Maybe that's part of their strategy for the future, Wilf.
They haven't got any strategy. They're too thick for that.
All right. Oh, thanks for that, Wilf. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
All right, 12 minutes past 12. We talked about it before, the groins on Douglas Beach, whether they should be there, whether they shouldn't be there. Well, one thing is absolutely certain. The sand's building up. That's all there is to it. You find the beach is low down until you get past the War Memorial, the bottom end of where the old pier used to be at the bottom of Broadway. That's when it starts building up. And from there, really, to Queen's Promenade, the beach is building right up to the level of the promenade. In fact, as Will said, you used to have to jump down 10, 12 feet to the beach. Now it's virtually the same height as the pavement. So what to do? Well, it's up to you. What do you think about it? Maybe that's part of the ongoing strategy for tourism on the Isle of Man. Yes, a message in. The steam packet can confirm Mannin is stopping at Hong Kong to take on additional supplies. She'll also take on board additional fuel while in Anchorage, and will continue her journey to UK waters once everything has been fixed up in Hong Kong. Maybe they'll be popping into duty free, but we'll see. Anybody got any photos of that? That'll be fantastic. Just a note in regarding Ramsey and the minor injuries and illnesses unit. It is open till 8 o'clock tonight. Last admission is 7:30, but it opened late. Didn't open till 9:30 this morning. And a quick word about the airport. The drop-off lane outside the terminal is closed to cars until 5 o'clock today. The closed lanes will be manned. Customers will be directed to the short-stay car park, where you'll get an hour's free car parking. Buses, taxis and disabled blue badge holders will be granted access to the inner lane, but the drop-off lane outside the terminal building is shut today. Do be aware of that. And a quick word, I just want to give you a quick mention. We've not heard much about this, but it's Dementia Action Week. And today in Douglas Town Centre, there's a roadshow. It's on till 3 outside Marks and Spencer, just outside the old post office, what's now 1812. There's a Dementia Action Roadshow out there. So if you want to see them tomorrow, they're going to be in Ramsey at the big ShopRite car park from 10 till 3. And on Friday, the Manx Decaf Flower Power themed disco will be at Douglas Golf Club from 2 till 4. So I just wanted to point you towards that. Dementia Action Week. So today, Douglas Town Centre, tomorrow, Ramsey ShopRite, and Friday at Douglas Golf Club. They'd love to see your face in the place if you want to find out more about Dementia Action Week. Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. A subject that's kind of to do with various things that have been going on recently, to do with sort of healthcare and green things. I just want to comment on an article in last week's Manx Independent. Draft regulations to make e-scooters legal on the way. I always think it's wise to look at other jurisdictions that have done it first, and there are several. Now, the most common kind of injury reported is to the head and face from an e-scooter accident caused by the pitching forward motion in e-scooter accidents, whereas bicycle accidents tend to be arms, hands and hip due to falling sideways caused by the loss of centrifugal force. Studies by UCLA and the University of Texas has recently and conservatively estimated that the injury rate for e-scooters is 200 times worse than motor vehicles and twice as bad as motorbikes, despite e-scooters travelling slower. And some of the reasons for those statistics are 95% of e-scooter riders don't wear a helmet. There's no training or licensing in any of those jurisdictions. The high centre of gravity makes them inherently unstable. The small wheels get easily snagged by bumps, curbs and potholes is a big thing at the moment. The standing posture can be confusing for motorists trying to assess speed, especially at road junctions and particularly to the offside of the vehicle. Very young riders tend not to know the rules of the road. The headlights tend to be weak. E-scooters tend to have consumer quality parts for occasional use, and they're not engineered for day in, day out commuting.
Did you hear what Chris Thomas said about this in Keys recently, Julian?
I did catch something. Go on, you tell me.
Okay,
again.
well, just wait there for about a minute.
It will become legal to drive e-scooters on the island's roads and cycle lanes, but they will remain prohibited from being ridden on footways and in pedestrianised areas. They will only be allowed on roads that have a speed limit of 30 miles per hour or less. They will be limited to 250 watts and around 50 miles per hour, the general standard across Europe. Riders would have to be 14 years or older. Helmets will not be mandatory but would be recommended. Basically, the department is keen to support government achieving its climate change commitments and recognises that electric scooters could be an important part of that, encouraging people out of cars for short journeys, including commutes. The department also believes that they will help people towards a more active lifestyle, leading to longer, healthier lives. The department is deliberately taking a permissive approach to e-scooter regulations to encourage people to make this modal shift and lifestyle change. This approach seems perhaps to be in contrast with that approach in the UK, which seems to be taking a slightly more risk-averse approach compared to most countries. That said, the department would undertake a 2-year post-implementation study on the uptake, safety and modal shift. Of course, subject to Tynwald approval of the regulations in the first place. A baseline study for this work has already been completed. Car use in the Isle of Man is very high, with all but 1 in 20 of us reporting regular use. By contrast, only 1 in 10 of us use electric bikes or scooters. However, about 40% of under 40s said they would consider using an e-scooter in future, but this dropped to 19% for those over 40 but under 65, but still a considerable interest. Interestingly, 1% of the 1,600 respondents to this survey reported that they already own an e-scooter.
So 1% of the 100 and however many you said own an e-scooter, and so over 14 recommended to wear a helmet. Did he say 50 miles an hour?
Well, the limit, in theory, on all the ones that are available are 15.5 miles an hour,
right.
But there are hacks available either through the interface with a code that you can get or a cut of a wire which stops the speed governor.
But he said on roads only, not on pavements. How are they going to regulate that?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because the UCLA study showed that jurisdictions that have banned them on pavements, 51% of riders admitted to getting on the pavement to avoid traffic queues. They also said that talking on a phone or listening to music exacerbated many accidents. What else? E-scooter accident statistics indicate that 80% of the incidents do not involve another party, caused either by hazardous surface objects tripping up the small wheels or rider error. A quarter of e-scooter injuries involve surgery. 15% involve brain trauma, and head injuries are twice as likely as a traditional bicycle.
I get concerned when he said, the minimum age 14. So you would have a 14-year-old travelling at up to 30 miles an hour with a 250-watt electric scooter.
Yeah. And the thing is, the current road designs are not taking account of them because they are relatively slow compared with cars and motorbikes, because the limit is supposed to be 15.5 miles an hour. Yeah. And of course, this causes frustration with other drivers. I mean, are they going to have therapists for people's anger management with this?
And also, there's a point to be made. Will they have to have a rear light? Because if these are used, the Isle of Man gets fairly dark from October onwards, so you can't be having these flashing down the road without a rear light, surely.
Well, what you're going to have some sort of, either something that sticks up at the back so that it's at eye level with with the 20-ton lorry that's behind you or whatever. I mean, and how is insurance going to work with this? If you've got a 14-year-old that hasn't learned the rules of the road and sharing it with lorries, buses, cars and motorbikes, is the burden going to be on us? And what about the health service? I mean, it's already difficult. If you go for mass rollout of e-scooters that are 200 times the injury rate of current motor vehicles, how is Nobles or even Ramsey Cottage going to handle that?
There just seems to be, when Chris Thomas says that they want to tell the Keys that DOI wants to take a permissive approach to the introduction. What does that mean, permissive?
Well, it means sort of. Well, I suppose it's what is that? Unregulated, or I mean,
make it up as you go along.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically saying you're not going to teach somebody to use a vehicle that's got a high centre of gravity, tiny little wheels that will be tripped up at the I mean, you want to see some of the potholes I've been on? I mean, on the motorbike, I mean, you're kind of smoothly avoiding them, but, on an e-scooter, it may not be possible if you've got, the bus next to you trying to overtake you and you're coming up on some of those seams that are coming loose on some of the island's roads.
Well, we'll see. All right, Julian, good to hear from you. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
All right, 23 odd minutes now past midday. Bonzo's with us now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hi there, yes. Gosh, it's not that often that Julian and I agree. But yes, I absolutely agree with his thinking on e-scooters. I'm amazed that Chris Thomas has come out with this, because nobody seems to have thought about the enforceability of these of any sort of regulations concerning operation of e-scooters. Oh, someone's got to be 14 to it. Yeah, how are you going to do that? They have to be going at 15 miles an hour, as Julian says. There are various hacks and stuff. Oh, right, fine. So how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to enforce the fact that they're not going to ride them on the pavement? I mean, it is just a license to fill up A&E at Nobles and cause innumerable problems.
So why do you think somebody in DOI looked at this and thought it's a goer?
Question well presented. I think somebody has thought, oh well, yes, it'll be environmental, it'll be good. And speaking as someone who is very much for the adaptation to a green economy and green transport. No, it simply isn't the way to go. You will end up with a situation where half of the other man police force is going around trying to enforce people not to zoom around on e-scooters, and you'll have half of the health service trying to mend the injuries.
But that wasn't why you called.
That wasn't why I called. No, I'm calling about Tynwald yesterday and Ransom. Yes. The government is still in absolute denial, even though they try and sound as if they're not. I mean, Laurie Hooper's apology, public apology to Ransom for all her suffering, etc., etc., that sounded pretty hollow when, for half of his speech, he was going on about how DHSC had to defend the case because when Ransom approached them for an out-of-court settlement, she was wanting $7 million. So that does rather say, sorry, actually not sorry. So that first bit. Then secondly, Alf Cannon again in complete denial and going absolutely for Tim Glover when he was speaking about how he'd been contacted by other whistleblowers. And I think there was mention of some letter that had been circulated to Tynwald members beforehand. Now, I think it'd be interesting to find out who this letter was from. I'm presuming it's obviously a variety of whistleblowers, perhaps a sort of joint statement from these whistleblowers, and what that contains.
I think, Bonzo, before, because at the moment this is just, this is like hitting a pile of soot. At the moment, everything is going everywhere, and we're full of obfuscation, finger pointing here, there, and everywhere. And before the public loses interests, something has to happen. We have to get something tangible out of this for our £4-5 million that we're paying for it.
Yes, and that tangible is a proper inquiry. Now, Alf, I think, has taken some political judgments that this is what he can get away with. in terms of an inquiry without the UK intervening. So, no, I'm not going to have a judge-led inquiry, but I am going to have a select committee, and the inquiry will be led by a retired judge. But it'll still be a select committee type inquiry that makes recommendations rather than one that has full powers. So he and others can perhaps sleep a little better at night. I noticed Ashford as well with his interviews, both on Isle of Man TV and of course on Manx Radio. Again, is living in a parallel universe. He simply does not accept any form of responsibility for what happened to Ransom. And the idea that he somehow didn't know, or that he somehow wasn't consulted, it is nonsense on stilts, as far as I'm concerned.
So how far do we go back, Bonzo? I mean, again, this straddles two administrations.
Well, it straddles two administrations, and others in those administrations have to answer questions. We're talking about the former chief minister. We're talking about former departmental members at that time. We're also talking about the other member of the inner COVID cabinet, who's called Steve Roden, President of Tynwald, because there were four, of course, Quayle, Ashford, Cannon, and Roden. And indeed, those with long memories might recall that they tried to, not on just one, but on two occasions, to try and, during the COVID emergency, lower the quorum of Tynwald to 4. Which would have meant that if that vote had passed, and on the second time it damn well near did, that essentially Howard would be able to have ruled by dictate.
Well, bearing in mind that the current Chief Minister, Mr. Cannon, is a former army officer, and I'm sure they teach them at Sandhurst things like how to maintain discipline and also retain a team spirit. Surely he'll know how to do this, because that's inculcated in military officers. Keep the men on side and also maintain discipline.
I somehow think his platoon sergeant had a lot of work to do.
Okay. Thanks for calling today, Bonzo.
Okay, then.
All right, it's 12:30 on Manx Radio. Thanks for dropping by today. Good to hear from you. Next Monday, Claire Barber's here. Claire Barber, MHK, the DEFA Minister, Department of Environment, Food and Agriculture Minister, will be here with her interim Chief Exec, Steve Stanley. We'll be talking about all things environment, food and agriculture. And next Wednesday, a week today, Daphne Kane will be along with Dave Sourden and Clive Callister. They are members of the Climate Change Transformation Board. Daphne is chair of it. MHK, of course, for Garth, one of the Garth MHKs. And if you want to get a question to them, by all means, you can either record one on the answer phone on 682-631 or email manninline@manxradio.com, or take your chances when we're on air next week. Fluoridation. Putting fluoride in the water was another big topic in Tynwald this week. How much is it going to cost? £2 million and more.
For lunch every day of the week by the harbour in Ramsey is not to be missed. And if you're making plans to see your favourite bands, make the Cool Bar top of your list. At the Carvery on Sundays, you know they'll feed you well. Carl and the team hope you'll give them a bell. Just call 813-045, it's the Mitre Hotel.
Time for a jog then, yes sir?
Why not?
Oh, problems with your spine and posture can have a serious effect on your quality of life, but a Line for Life spine clinic could help. If you're suffering from back pain, neck pain, headaches, their holistic scientific approach could find and treat the root cause of the problem for long-lasting relief. Touch A Line for Life now, or call 629-444. A Line for Life, the island's spine and posture clinic, here to make life better.
Above deck or below, Harbour Marine Services has all your boating needs in one place. From engine sales and servicing to charts, books, dinghies and trailers, electronics, navigation, ropes, rigging and safety. Over 2,000 square feet of stock to help you stay safe on the water. Call 822 995 or find us on Facebook. For all your chandlery supplies, set your course to Harbour Marine Services, next to Castle Down Harbour.
Who's the king? Work it out and you could win an amazing prize from the King Spa in Onken. From Monday to Friday, we're celebrating the King Spa's 5th birthday in style, with some great prizes to be won. Check out the image on manxradio.com and fill in the competition entry form to get into the draw. Then be listening at 5 p.m. on Friday to see if you're a weekly winner. Don't miss your chance to be treated like royalty. Who's the king? Every weekday with the King Spa Onken and your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
27 minutes before 1, and thanks for joining Manx Radio for Mannin Line today. You can. Oh, just a quick word about the new webcams. If you go to manxradio.com, there is a section with webcams. I think there's 15, 16 odd webcams around the Isle of Man. They've revised them recently. I think they've upgraded the software, so the webcams are looking sensational. I got a note in from John in Mansfield in Victoria in Australia. Just said the webcams are looking fantastic, much improved. As a 2-time visitor to the Isle of Man, I appreciate keeping up to date with the daily Manx Radio news and look forward to the live TT and MGP radio broadcasts with the legendary Chris Kinley. Yes, well, actually, Chris Kinley will be starting a week on Friday with the pre-TT at Bilown. He'll be there with Rob Pritchard, Tim Glover, MHK, and I think Beth's going to be in the pits as well. That's the pre-TT, and then the kind of radio TT boys get underway the Monday after that with Ashley House at the head of it all. So thanks for that, John. Good to hear from you. Pity I'm a bit older, says John, and a long way away to be able to be there in person. All the best. So thanks for that, John. Glad you like the webcams. They're at manxradio.com. Click on community and click on to webcams and have a virtual tour around the Isle of Man, including into Studio One at Manx Radio. But I'd skip over that one. I agree with Wilf, says Texter 901. Bring back the groins. And 223 says, Andy, I've just done a lap of the TT course. Never seen so many prohibited areas as we now have. Are the government trying to kill the TT the way they're going? Not only is it expensive to get here and stay here, but you can't get to popular viewing areas. Can you tell me what used to be available that is now prohibited, if you would? And Graham says, Andy, what's going on with the DOI? In the Sulby section of the road waiting to be tarred, nobody's working there. Then going through Kirkmichael, the road's closed to Douglas. Why don't they know it's the tourist season and coaches have to find other routes? Ridiculous. This is happening in the tourist season, says Graham. They could perhaps remove the deepening sand at Douglas and dump it off Kirkmichael or wherever the coast is disappearing. I think that battle's fairly well lost. Although, on the plus side, the Point of Ayr is getting closer to Scotland every year. Day by day, more and more keeps coming out about the £3.2 million compensation case. Even if there's a public inquiry, what's the point if nobody's going to be held accountable, says Jeff. Seems to me, as a layman, that certain people within government departments have well exceeded their job description. That's a very, very polite way of putting it, to the point of criminal charges being brought. So why isn't this the case? Nobody, thank you, Jeff, good point, nobody's mentioned that this possibly may be criminal, that a witch law will have been transgressed at the moment. This is a civil case. And I did you see the Attorney General saying yesterday that there's no point in putting a summons on the ever-disappearing Catherine Manxman in Hertfordshire in England because they can't serve out of jurisdiction. Well, you'd think they'd just have a go, wouldn't you? Put the frighteners on it and just say, look, we know what you did, you know what you did, now you know that we know what you did. We need more like Wilf, says Gary, saying how it is. Common sense has been thrown out of the window recently. Oh, Wilf. Have they mended that raft in Ramsey yet? Thank you, Gary. It's a shame things only get spruced up for TT visitors. Don't the island's residents deserve to keep the place spruced up all the rest of the time? I'm with Wilf on this, says JK. It'll never happen, of course, because it's correct, says JK. I saw on TV a few weeks ago, says ED, how many council houses sold cheap to the tenants in the UK have been sold on and now have returned to become private rental property. Some houses have been turned into as many as 6 flats by private landlords. So, thank you, ED. Does that mean you don't think that public sector houses on the Isle of Man should be sold? It's never been suggested on the Isle of Man. There is a lot of public sector housing stock right around the Isle of Man. So, it's never really got any political traction that should be sold, that each particular tenant would have the right to purchase the house, and then the money that they contribute would go back to the public sector housing authority and perhaps be used to build another house. Anyway, sounds like e-scooters are just too dangerous, says 068. They shouldn't be allowed. Thank you for that point. It's 22 minutes before 1. This is Manx Radio, and this is Mannin Line.
This year's Mental Health Awareness Week theme is anxiety. Pause and remember, there's no need to hurry, no need to be anybody but yourself.
Ramsey Crookle, supporting Mental Health Awareness Week on your nation station, Manx Radio.
A text in from 535. E-scooters. Well, riders should have to wear helmets. Surely they would have to be insured. I've got a dash cam on order, as the car driver will probably be blamed for accidents without proof otherwise. Fatal accidents could occur. I mean, having somebody on an e-scooter without a helmet, and Chris Thomas said they'll recommend helmets, but they can't enforce helmets, and that e-scooters will not be allowed on pavements. So at the moment you do get the old rogue scooter pusher who does go on a pavement. You get the odd cyclist who gets on a pavement. You only have to go down Strand Street in Douglas, and occasionally you'll get some people showboating down the middle of Strand Street, and there's a bylaw against that, but nobody seems to be wanting to enforce it. David Ashford said he may not have directly done anything to Dr. Ransom, but he was passive to her appalling treatment, says Texter 572. Well, he disagrees with that. The Texter 572 says she reached out to him for help and he didn't do anything. It was his responsibility as minister to ensure all were operating according to the standards of government, says this texter. Now, remember, this happened after the big split. DHSC was split, and obviously Manx Care came into being. So Sir Jonathan Michaels was part of, it was his report that recommended. We haven't heard anything from Sir Jonathan Michaels. Whether his big fat fee extends to giving advice or consultation after the fact, we don't know. Liz with us now. Hi, Liz.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Well, it's a lovely day. Isn't it gorgeous?
And you're stuck in there, yes, we know. Never mind, you can get out shortly.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, regarding selling council houses, well, I'm from Ireland, as you might gather, and when my mother they'd been in the house for 21 years, the council automatically let the people buy the house, but that was a long time ago, so it was. But when I moved to the island in 67, and then in 1975, I was living, I was stopping with my mother-in-law because I'd married and we hadn't got a place. But they were in Farrens Park, and there were some people in the row. I think there was about 5 houses in the row, and some of the people wanted to buy them, and they approached the Castletown commissioners, and the commissioner said if everybody in the row would buy them, they would sell the whole row.
And that was when?
That was 75.
I'd never heard that before.
Didn't you? Well, some of the people are dead now that did apply to buy them, but there again, his wife's still alive, so she is. But yes, they did. They applied, they approached the commissioners, and they said they would only sell them if everybody in the whole row was to buy it. They weren't going to sell one individually. They had to sell the whole row.
Do you think it's a good idea for the Isle of Man currently?
Yes, I do, actually. But if a person has been in the house, say, 20 years, yes, they should give them the opportunity to buy the house. And then they might look after them better than what they do now.
Nobody's saying that people don't look after houses well.
Some do, some don't. Some have loads of rubbish in the garden, etc., etc. Some don't look after the properties in the council house. But if they owned them, they might take better care of them. But yeah, if they've been in, say, 20 years or something like that, non-stop, sell them to the people.
I mean, do you think they should be sold at the current market value, or the tenant should get a discount for the amount of time they've been there?
I think they should sell them at a discount for the time that they've been there. I know my mother; she got a good discount because she'd been in the house for 21 years from she was married.
So how do you stop this? The person who wrote in said, in England where it's happened, some people have sold the council houses that they bought, and they've now gone back into the private rental sector.
Yeah, but the fact is, they should only let the tenants buy the house.
Oh, I see.
If they've been in for 20 years. If the tenant been in that house for 20 years, they should be able to buy them, because they paid 20 years rent, haven't they?
Interesting. Okay. All right, Liz, thanks for that.
But they shouldn't sell them to other people. They shouldn't sell them to people, only to sitting tenants.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Liz.
Yeah. Okay,
thank
you.
All right, good to hear from you. Kenny dropped me a note to say, if I have an accident, if involved in an accident with an e-scooter, do I sue Chris Thomas for compensation? Simple answer, no. You don't. How can Chris Thomas say, 366 says, how can Chris Thomas say he wants to stop people using cars so much, but yet get rid of the bus cap? Well, he said it didn't work. The government are doing nothing. This is an insult to the Manx public, says Ian in Ramsey. What a joke. If this is Paul on 931. What a joke if the DOI is going to allow e-scooters to be used on roads with the speed limit of under 30 miles an hour. The housing estates that have home zones are 20 miles an hour, and they're going to be, so it's going to be dangerous for any pedestrians or other users, as 14-year-olds will be using e-scooters like race courses. People are going to get injured, if not a lot worse. Insurance has to be looked into, otherwise, if they cause any damage, why should the other party foot the bill? Says Paul. Well, this is the granular detail that really we need. If e-scooters are going to be brought in, if they're going to be made legal, will you have to wear a helmet? Will you have to only be on roads? Will you have to have a rear light? If it's dusk, can you use them after dark? What's going to happen? Listening to Chris Thomas's explanation of potential e-scooter use, says Les, I'm astounded. There's no mention of using high-vis clothing. Surely that's an absolute necessity if you're using an e-scooter. E-scooters are fantastic. Says 653, where I live currently, my 14-year-old son had to pass a road theory test before he was able to use it. He can only ride it on roads or cycle lanes. I do believe that helmets should be compulsory. No reason the same couldn't be introduced on the Isle of Man. And Jane says e-scooters is another civil service-led idea that the public as a whole don't want, don't need, and yet another MHK seemingly incapable of putting a stop to. David Ashford says 623 actually admitted some responsibility, so don't let that claim go unchallenged. I just wanted to bring up fluoridation because it's something a lady called Hazel dropped me a note and said it's all gone quiet on fluoridation. Well, not that quiet, because Michelle Haywood MHK has piped up about it. Fluoridation was a big topic in Tynwald. The Social Affairs Policy Review Committee on Oral Health in Our Children was presented submitted to Tynwald Court. Now, a number of recommendations were presented, including a request from COMIN, the Council of Ministers, for a research paper to be prepared exploring fluoridation of water. The request divided opinion amongst members, and as a result, they'll vote on the issue again next month. Here's Dr. Michelle Haywood, MHK.
I think it really comes from the original recommendation said about fluoride varnish twice a year, and that's already in place. So as a recommendation, it didn't have much added value to bring to the equation. And you're right, it could be the Cabinet Office Minister that directed Public Health to go and look at this anyway. I think the feeling probably from COMIN was to seek that approval to take the next step, and it is just about getting hold of an evidence-based, expert-assessed report. It's not about whether we're actually going to do it. It's saying let's look at this properly and in a reasoned and balanced way.
How do you respond to people who will accuse you, anyone who supports investigations even of fluoridation, will be accused of mass medication?
There are always allegations and things like that. I've had various things today by email about even having chloride in the water. And if you don't put chloride in the water, you'll end up with water that's actually harmful to health. The chlorination is there because we need to have some safety around water. There are several countries where fluoride is delivered through milk or through salt, and so other ways. When we know that having low levels of fluoride on an ongoing basis are really, really good for forming really, really strong enamel and protecting teeth, and that protection is just ongoing. So I think we've got evidence that lots of other strategies have failed, and it's not unreasonable to say, what could we be doing better?
And of course the levels of fluoride that would be added to water are not that dissimilar to areas which have high levels naturally of fluoride in water supplies.
Yeah, in fact, there are very clear guidelines about what the maximum level is, and usually the level that's put into water supplies is some way below the safe level, so you've got a really, really big margin of safety, because you have to allow for people who might consume lots of extra water, so people who are doing athletics or sports training where they're sweating a lot and their water intake goes up, so you have to allow some variability in that. I'm really trying to get people to do an evidence-based decision-making rather than speaking from the heart, speaking emotively. I've had lots of people quoting lots of studies at me that, to be frank, when you read them, are just really, really poorly set up and poorly evidenced. And so I think it's a time to look at good quality evidence from learned bodies and to actually make a reasoned decision on that.
What do you think about it? That's Michelle Haywood, and you can find out more about that at manxradio.com. The committee report on oral health is going to be subject to a combined vote with the recommendation from COMIN at the next sitting in June. A note in from, and this was from Emma, who just said, Andy, what happened to all those polystyrene balls in Port Erin? Nobody's really got to the bottom of it. Emma, lots of small polystyrene balls were released into the environment. Now, they're believed to have come from the demolition of the former marine biological station in Port Erin. Massive amounts, some people said millions, although nobody's counted them, appeared to be released from the cavity walls of the building, which had been filled with polystyrene for insulation purposes. Beach buddies are livid about this because obviously this is bad for the UNESCO biosphere, and also because they break down to be absolutely tiny, and animals can't distinguish the difference between these tiny polystyrene balls and items such as fish eggs, and they're caught in the seaweed and what have you. So I would imagine Bill, Dale and Beach Buddies are trying to get to the bottom of this, but those millions of polystyrene balls dumped in the sea in Port Erin. Got a question in from Dennis, who just said, we've heard a lot about Dr. Rosalind Ranson. When did she actually arrive on the Isle of Man, and when was she fired? Sorry, when did she leave? Dr. Rosalind Ranson was appointed in January 2020 as the Isle of Man's most senior doctor, the medical director. She told Manx Radio, actually, she contacted Manx Radio, a former MHK did, to tell us that she'd been dismissed from her role on the 13th of August 2021. So she arrived in January 2020 and was in post until the middle of August 2021. It was around the time that she gave evidence to a Public Accounts Committee where she criticised the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was published in in the middle of August 2021, and a committee member, former MHK Chris Robertshaw, passed the message on that Dr. Rosalind Ranson had been dismissed from her role then. So January 2020, she was appointed, and she left the middle of August 2021.
EPS just finished painting our house and we're delighted with the result.
Very impressed with the speed, quality and standard of work.
We would recommend EPS highly.
House looks like new.
Brilliant job from start to finish.
EPS, transforming properties island-wide with a revolutionary Protex wall covering system. Guaranteed for 10 years. Visit eps.company for details. There's a waiting list, but it'll be worth it.
A good job well done.
Thank you, EPS.
Roses are blooming at Ramsey Garden Centre, and with a variety of hanging baskets, summer bedding, fruit and ornamental trees, plus a full range of garden essentials, there's never been a better time to visit Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week.
It's the King Spa's 5th birthday, and with some amazing celebratory offers, we'll make you feel like royalty. Our unique new VIP card will let you celebrate our birthday year in style, with prestige access and a range of events, wellness weekday spas, afternoon teas and priority lunch bookings on Wednesdays and Fridays. Visit kingspa.im for all the details. The King Spa, King Edward Golf Club, Onken, celebrating 5 years of wellness.
Jump aboard the time train and take a trip back to the 1960s on Carnaby Street every Saturday morning at 8:30 with Isle of Man Railways. It's full of 60s hits and memories. On board the time train, Gladys the tea lady.
Right, boys.
Harry the driver.
Hello, crispy old mate.
Roger the fireman.
All aboard Isle of Man Railways time train.
Oh, and Raffles the dog. And of course you and me. You can win tickets for two for one of the Isle of Man Railways fantastic dining car experiences. Carnaby Street, 8:30 on Manx Radio, on AM/FM, online, on smart speakers and all over the world at manxradio.com.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint. Good afternoon, 7 minutes before 1. The Ranson fiasco needs to be dealt with as soon as possible, says Tony, but I can't believe the same people are asking for school holidays to be factored in to the 1 day a week that they work. I'm sure they work more than 1 day a week, Tony, but we understand that. Never mind mass medication, spend the £2 million on a decent, affordable dental service, says Sue. I think they'd say, Sue, you've got to get the dentists here first. If somebody tells you that you aren't being told something and you simply tell them to see the person who should be telling you, then do nothing, then you still don't get the information, you have ignored the person, says G on 313. Wilf didn't say bring back the groins, he said use the stones, says Kingo. He did, he said dig all the sand out and give it away. Anybody want about 3 million tonnes of sand from Douglas Beach? It's yours. Oh, no, don't take my word for that. It says so why does it say on tubes of toothpaste, do not swallow? Says Coops, it's because it's got fluoride in. It's very concentrated though, isn't it? I failed to understand the logic behind the elimination of small value coins, says Teresa. You know, they're talking about getting rid of 1, 2 and 5p coins. So I failed to understand the logic behind this at a time when people are already suffering from the impact of price rises. This is just another way of pushing us into doing something that we don't want to do, that is, rely wholly on credit and debit cards. The government's now constantly dictating what we can think and how we behave. A cashless society is yet another way for government to monitor our whereabouts and spending habits when it's none of their business. I think they're just saying they just want to get rid of those coins, but it may be a trend, Teresa, so I see your point. Historically, says Teresa, people who rely on cards are more likely to spend beyond their means and have debt issues. When using cash, it's impossible to exceed the limit, and there's more awareness of what's actually being spent. So what happens when the internet's hacked? What will happen? Stop interfering with a system that works. It's a waste of money, especially when there are far bigger issues needing to be resolved, as the general rundown condition of the island is one of them. Thank you for that, and also thank you to Eileen, who dropped me a note yesterday. Thank you, Eileen. The reason your email didn't get through to me is because there's no gap in Manx Radio. Manx Radio is all one word, not Manx Gap Radio. Manx Radio, all one word. Thanks for that. You didn't put your email on, so I couldn't reply to you, but thanks for that point. I appreciate what you had to say. And it was Penny who said, Andy, were you winding me up? I thought it was April the 1st when you said there were over 500 wallabies on Balaf Currachs. No, I didn't say. No, it wasn't me. It's the Manx Wildlife Trust. They carried out 2 surveys across Balaf Currach over 2 consecutive nights. They were out there counting wallabies. 568 wallabies. That's 100. I'm not kidding you. 140 wallabies per square kilometre. The survey site includes agricultural land. It's thought it maybe the density will be higher when the wallabies retreat to the wallaby yurt that they've got there. But it is true there are over 500 wallabies now in the north of the Isle of Man. How far south they've gone, we don't yet know. That'll please the Australian TV crew when they get over here. That's it. Thanks for Chris Quirk on the phones today. We're back with an open line tomorrow, Thursday.
WINT